The Calgary Flames appear to be ready to head into a retool mode, and defenseman Nikita Zadorov has requested a trade. Where might he end up? Could it be another Canadian team like the Leafs or the Canucks? Plus, what is going on with the Edmonton Oilers? They have another game left on this road trip against the Seattle Kraken. There is speculation that when they get back from the trip, big changes might be coming. We'll discuss that. Plus, we also have news from the NHL waiver wire, several other injuries, and roster updates around the NHL. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of things to take a look at today. Before we get into the speculation on the Oilers and the Flames' potential trades we might see, let's take a look at some of the other news around the NHL. After playing his first NHL game, former first-rounder for the Buffalo Sabres, Matthew Savoie, has been sent back to the Western Hockey League, so he'll be returning to junior. Obviously, he's not eligible at this point in his career to play in the American Hockey League, so Savoie will go back to the WHL Wenatchee team and complete his junior season. Could be a big piece for the World Junior Championship for Team Canada, and we'll see. Obviously, he still has a bright future, I think, with Buffalo, but after battling an injury, getting his first NHL game, he's now reassigned to junior. News from the waiver wire: the Nashville Predators, after only 4 games, placed youngster Samuel Fagemo on waivers to be end up getting reclaimed by his former team, the Los Angeles Kings. Of course, he was a Kings prospect and draft pick for a fair bit of time. Ended up going on waivers with LA a while back. Got picked up by the Predators. Played 4 games. He scored 1 goal. Back on waivers he goes. Obviously, the Preds weren't convinced they wanted to keep him long term, and LA reclaims him. Now, because of that, and because he was already with the Kings previously, they can assign him directly to the AHL, which they've done. So they don't have to worry about passing him through waivers again to do that. Some other news from around the NHL: Penguins goaltender Tristan Jarry, who had a little bit of a scary situation last week, looked like he might be out longer term, is ready to return this evening. They ended up reassigning the other younger goalie, Blomqvist, back down to the minors. Vinny Hinostroza has been recalled as well, since they don't need the roster spot anymore, and then Jarry comes off of injured reserve to play as well. So Jerry's back. Actually, I don't even think he was officially on IR from that point forward, but obviously that injury was kind of looked scary there for a little bit. Looks like he could have been a lot worse than what it ended up being. Arturi Lehkonen, of course, we know had a scary situation the other night, going headfirst into the boards. Was alert and awake and moving of all his limbs and everything at the hospital, but the Avalanche have indicated from head coach Jared Bednar that it's definitely going to be a while before he returns. They don't have a definitive timetable, but he used the word weeks, so it's going to be at least multiple weeks before he comes back. They're still kind of establishing those timelines and fully understanding the full extent of the injury. So definitely going to miss tonight and for a couple of weeks for sure. Andrew Cogliano is also going to miss tonight's game as well for the Avalanche. The Jackets already played today, but they did get Patrick Laine back, who was cleared after dealing with a concussion. So that was good news to see Laine back in the lineup. And David Jiricek was demoted to make the roster spot, which was a little confusing. I'm not sure what the Jackets are doing. I thought this was going to be more of a, development year and experience year type of thing for some of the young players like Johnson, Jiricek, and back to the minors he goes. I believe it was just last week. I thought Jiricek was told to find a place to stay and live, and he'd be staying with the big club. So there is speculation that it might just be temporary and he might be able to be recalled here in a couple days. So we'll see where that goes. The Predators also have been able to activate Cody Glass. He's returning from injury as well. And in Toronto, Ryan Reaves is going to be a healthy scratch as they do battle with the Vancouver Canucks this evening. Obviously, Ryan Reaves was looked upon by many as being a pretty big offseason acquisition by Toronto, the so-called boogeyman of the NHL. One of the league's top fighters. Big, scary, intimidating guy. But what a lot of people had the argument for the Leafs in the offseason and even the early part of this year was that's all fine and dandy. But really, at the end of the day, can he play? Can he play a regular shift? Is he going to be on the ice enough to really make a difference in that sense? For example, the last game he played the other night against the Flames, he only played not even 5 minutes. It was about 4.5 minutes, and he was on the ice for a couple of goals against. Not saying they're all his fault. There's obviously 4 other guys plus the goalie on the ice, but it just seems like his line is not getting out of the defensive zone a lot. He himself, like just the actual game of hockey, the skating, the passing, like all the plays, like he's just not very good. I understand he plays a role, but even we haven't seen a lot of the physical stuff out of him. I know when they played the Sens last week, at the very last shift, at the end of the game, just as the buzzer was about to go off, he tried to go after Zach McEwen, but McEwen's like, listen, we're winning by a couple goals here. We're in the last minute of play. I'm not fighting you. And then, of course, in the game against Calgary, Nikita Zadorov, who we're going to talk about a little bit more here in a couple minutes, laid a huge hit. And then I think he was expecting to have to answer the bell for it because of the way he reacted. Right after he laid the hit, he didn't really move. He kind of stayed stationary for a few seconds, kind of looking around, thinking somebody's coming at me. And then nothing happened. Nobody went after him. Which is, to be honest, I don't think he should have to answer the bell for a big hit like that. I think the better way to respond is to lay a big hit of your own. That's the way I always was taught the game growing up, and I don't know why we see players fighting for clean hits nowadays. But at the end of the day, it's more about sticking up for your teammates and sending a message to the other team, just letting them know, hey, if you're going to throw stuff around and lay hits and on our top players, we're going to do the same to you. It's just that simple. But Reaves is there to play a role. He's not really getting the job done, so he's going to sit tonight. They called up Bobby McMahon, who is going to be able to make his season debut for the Leafs. They brought up Robertson recently. He's played relatively well. Matthew Nyes is doing good. So at least some of the younger players are getting in the lineup and getting some good reps in, which is nice to see for them. Reaves got a 3-year contract. I'm not convinced at this point that it's all terrible and they're not going to be able to get this to work out. But they got to figure out a way to make it work that he plays enough to be able to be on the ice so that he can respond to look after his teammates like he's supposed to do, but not be a liability. That's how you got to balance things out, and that's the tricky part right now. So basically the way Sheldon Keefe put it was it's almost like a mental reset type of opportunity for Reaves to be able to sit out, kind of clear his head, and see if he can get himself on track here and playing a little bit differently. So we'll see what happens. I mean, like I said, long term, if the coach is having a hard time keeping him out there and not getting scored on all the time, it's going to be tough for him to do what he was brought in to do. So unfortunately, like I said, we'd say a lot of the offseason acquisition by the Leafs so far haven't really worked out for the best. Domi and Bertuzzi are coming around now. There is optimism there. Bertuzzi has a couple goals now. Domi seems to be picking up, especially where they put him as third-line center. So those two I'm not too worried about. They're obviously stronger players, and I think longer term that they will kind of take a little time to mesh, but they'll figure it out. Klingberg and Reaves are the issues. And now Klingberg was a healthy scratch last night. I know Keefe said it was injury related, but he's already going back in tonight. So, yeah, I'm not buying that. And then the Reaves tonight is definitely a healthy scratch. So we'll see where things go. At the end of the day, as long as they're winning games, that's the main thing. But they did want to add an element of toughness and looking after their teammates. And it's like the team tends to play the way their top players play, and they don't get that style of play from them, which is why the team, I think, is built and just kind of the way they respond, the way they do. And inserting a guy like Reaves typically should give everybody a little bit more confidence and just to play and not have to worry. It's like if somebody comes after me, I've got this guy here that's going to stick up for me. But if he's not on the ice, he can't do that. So we'll see where that goes. But so far, the Reaves experiment hasn't gone well in Toronto. Now, are the Edmonton Oilers going to find a way to win against the Kraken? Are they on the verge of a coaching change? There are some people that claim to have Edmonton sources that are saying that when the Oilers return from their current road trip, and the final game is tonight against the Kraken, after that, they'll return home. I'm not sure when they actually fly home. I assume they're probably heading home tonight after the game because wouldn't be that far of a flight from Seattle to Edmonton. And then they can be home tomorrow. They play Monday night against the New York Islanders. That there's speculation that when they return home, that's when the changes are going to come. Obviously, after the San Jose loss, we didn't see any changes. There's speculation that Ken Holland's working on a big trade, and that very well could be. We know they need goaltending help. There's no doubt. I have no doubt he is working on it. But the speculation out of Edmonton was not only for Jay Woodcroft, but assistant coach Dave Manson. And there's even some speculation about the future of Kenny Holland. Now, Holland's on the final year of his deal. He's expected to retire. I don't see Holland getting fired. Now, if they decided to make a change, because clearly they have some important decisions to make, not only in terms of the head coach, but in terms of the roster. And do they trust him to make those decisions is the question. They clearly are likely going to have a new GM moving forward. I think it's fair to say that Jeff Jackson, the new appointed CEO from earlier this year, is pretty much running the shots. I don't know how this is all going to play out. But, I don't think Holland would get fired. I think, if anything, he could get reassigned at most, or they're going to leave him as GM and just make sure the other voices that are influential within the Edmonton Oilers organization, whether it be Jackson himself, Paul Coffey's another one who has a big voice, maybe they're more involved with some of these things, because clearly they want to make sure that if they do move on from Jay Woodcroft, that they're going to need a head coach. Maybe they only need a solution for the rest of this year. And if Holland's not going to be the GM next year, then maybe next year during the offseason, they come in with a whole new general manager and a whole new head coach, which really might not be the worst thing. But I tell you, Connor McDavid has seen a lot of people come and go between GMs and coaches during his tenure in the NHL, and it's really hard to imagine how this could go. But I don't know. Like I said, there's some of these people in the Edmonton, I think it was Oilers Live account on Twitter, or X I should say, but they have a fairly big following. They claim they have organizational sources. We'll see, I guess. I'm not entirely convinced that this is going to happen. I won't be shocked if there's changes. I just don't know if it's going to be to that extent. I personally think that Ken Holland owes Jay Woodcroft a trade. Personally, I think Jay Woodcroft's a great coach. He's got a great record with the Oilers. He's done a lot of good things. Now, at the same time, though, you can say all those good things, but a couple of things that you may not want to fire the coach for would be, one, you see the players they haven't tuned them out. They're still playing hard for them. They're still getting the message. That's a big, important thing. If they look like they're not interested anymore and they're tuning them out and they're not really playing hard for them, okay, well, then that's a concern for sure. And you might need to make a change even if you don't want to. I mean, obviously, that's huge, right? And once they give up on the coach, there's generally no going back. But the other big thing is you need a coach to be creative and to find the answers to the team's problems and to try different things to get the problems resolved. And I'm not sure that there's really a lot he can do. Like, to be honest, I think that this roster construction around the defense is not good. Goaltending wasn't great, but the defense in front of him wasn't doing him any favors, just amplifying it and making it worse, in my opinion. I honestly think the team owes Woodcroft a trade or two before they really decide that he's not the coach moving forward. I can't say 100% that the team has given up on him, but something has to give here, and we'll see if this account online here is connected as well as they claim to be. If they do let Woodcroft go, who's going to take over? I mean, internally, they could have Glenn Gulutzan do it. He does have some head coaching experience. But again, is he really going to have a drastically different approach, system, message than Woodcroft? I mean, Gulutzan's one guy that may not be let go. His name wasn't mentioned in this rumor. It was Woodcroft and Manson. Gerard Gallant's another name. He's one experienced NHL head coach who tends to have a short shelf life, but is well connected to Ken Holland from their time in Detroit. So there is a connection there. He is known as a coach to come in on a short-term basis and get good results. Maybe he agrees to take on this team for the rest of the year. Of course, there's also a guy I don't know if they turned to him, but like Bruce Boudreau. There's some of these coaches that do have experience coming in just on an agreement just for the rest of the year, see where it goes. Maybe in the offseason they end up with a whole new regime and they make different options or different choices then. But we'll see where this goes. But that's the latest speculation in Edmonton. And Nikita Zadorov in Calgary reportedly wants out. He wants a trade. And that is not just a rumor. That is 100% confirmed by his agent, Dan Milstein, who echoed those sentiments as so on the Twitter or X platform. So, of course, it became out last night after the game against the Toronto Maple Leafs that Zadorov wanted out of Calgary. That's not really a big surprise. Obviously, we knew that some of these pending UFAs in Calgary were leaning towards leaving. We knew that there was a chance some of them could stay. They have 3 UFA defensemen, not only Zadorov, but Chris Tanev and Noah Hanifin. There's Elias Lindholm up front. And it's becoming more and more clear here recently that the Flames are going to embrace going in a new direction, probably what you'd call, I don't know if I want to use the word rebuild, but a major retool. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. They've called up and given opportunities to a lot of young players that haven't really seen much of an opportunity yet, and these guys have done well. So I think it's given them confidence that they have a lot of good young players here in the cupboard that can take on more of a role, that if they move players out to kind of start the retool, that they can still be competitive and they can still get these guys some valuable experience this year, even though it might not be their year this year in the standings, that if they start to retool now, by the time they get to the offseason, maybe they can make a couple more moves that are more significant and come back stronger for it next year with some good experience in these youngsters' careers. So, we've seen that, right? So Zadorov wants out. Dan Milstein, his agent, confirms it on Twitter, basically saying, I guess what I took from his statement was that he views Zadorov as being one of the better defensemen on the team, getting the least amount of ice time. But if he plays third pair minutes, he's playing behind Tanev, Hanifin, Rasmus Andersson. He's not going to move up in the playing level over them. But, he's a right shot guy. He's big. He's obviously known for throwing his big hits. There's definitely interest out there, 100%. We automatically had word from different NHL insiders, including Chris Johnson. I've seen talk about it. The fourth period, I've seen James Nichols, who covers the Devils, that the Canucks, Leafs, and Devils are all the teams out there that seem to have the most interest. I would not rule out any other teams. I'm not saying they're the only ones and he's going to end up in one of those spots. But after playing the Leafs last night and knowing the connection to Brad Treliving, we'd already talked about how Treliving was very interested in bringing in a couple of, at least one, if not more than one, of his former defensemen from the Flames. Elliot Friedman on his recent podcast, I think last week or earlier this week, had said if he could get Tanev and Zadorov, he believes he would do it. We know the Canucks have heavy interest in Tanev and Zadorov as well. Of course, Tanev's a former Canuck, and Rick Dollywall's reported numerous times the Canucks have had their eye on Zadorov, and if he hits free agency, he'll be getting a lot of interest from Vancouver. Now, once he's a free agent in the offseason, all the bets are off, and we'll see where he wants to go. But for right now, rumor is that he is willing to go to the Leafs or the Devils. I'm not so sure about Vancouver, but Vancouver might be able to offer potentially a better trade. It's hard to say. I mean, we do know they're open to trading Connor Garland or Anthony Beauvillier. I don't know if that would be worked into the deal, but they do have a decent winger to offer the Flames that might give them a head start on their retool. Obviously, Beauvillier comes as a pending UFA. Garland comes with term. When it comes to the Leafs and Devils, I would suspect you wouldn't want to see much of a subtraction off the roster. You'd probably be more of a pick and prospect type of return. The Leafs might have a tricky way of adding them to the roster with the cap the way it is. They could demote a few defensemen like Benoit and Lagesson. Obviously, they have Robertson and McMahon up right now. You demote enough of them. Maybe, I don't know if Calgary could retain a little bit of money to make it work. But obviously, the Leafs would be able to, I'm not sure what they'd offer, but I mean, they do have some picks, prospects, and younger players that might be of interest. Now, he's going to be a rental, though, so I would think they're not going to want to offer anything too substantial. Now, same with the goes for the New Jersey Devils. It's believed that they would like to add some more size and experience back there, so he'd be a good fit there as well. So hard to say where he ends up, but he definitely wants out of Calgary, and they're hoping for a quick resolution. So a lot of people think that a trade is likely going to materialize fairly quick. It could happen anytime. Hard to say exactly when. But at the end of the day, Nikita Zadorov's days in Calgary appear to be numbered. It appears as though a trade, I would think, will come together fast. Now that it's out, I would think that the team is going to want to take care of this as soon as possible. But they got to get the right deal. We'll see. Will he end up with his former GM, Brad Treliving, in Toronto? Could he end up with the Devils or Canucks or elsewhere? Let me know your thoughts on today's rumors and news down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.